Yo everyone, with Milky Way season here, I thought it might be time to share my top 9 tips on astrophotography. My first tip is choosing a lens that's going to be great for astrophotography. Something that's wide angle because we want to capture our foregrounds, plus a lot of the sky at the same time, so a nice wide angle will allow us to do that. Plus getting some fast glass. What I mean by that is something with a big, large aperture, something around that 2.8 or even greater. For example here, this is a Samyang 14mm 2.4. As you can see, a lot of glass, a lot of aperture there. Or even my Sigma up here, which is a Sigma 24 to 35 f2 Art I've been playing around with. Just like with our landscape photography, we need a sturdy tripod to hold our camera steady for our night shots. We're taking shots in that vicinity of 15 to 20 seconds, so we'll need something that's rock steady and won't be shuffled around in the wind or anything like that. As an extra sneaky little half tip here, grab yourself an L bracket on your camera, which will allow you to mount your camera vertically on top of your ball head, which makes it a lot more stable than if we were mounting it here and then doing that old flop it over and it's all shaky. I recommend shooting RAW. RAW allows us to capture all that detail that the sensor is gathering during our long exposures. Particularly with night shots, where we're working with quite dark shadows, there's a lot more information in a RAW file in those shadow areas that we can pull out during our processing than in, say, a JPEG. So I suggest RAW. White balance is another important consideration. We want our colours looking nice and correct. Even though we're shooting RAW and we can adjust our white balance and tints later while we're doing our processing, it's nice to see the photos on the back of camera looking fairly neutral and sort of getting the idea of what's going on with the colours. To do this, I recommend sort of around that 3800 to 4000 Kelvin if your camera allows you to set a manual one. I find that the camera's preset white balances of either tungsten or daylight are either too cool or too warm respectively. So I like to sort of get that middle ground of around 3800 to 4000 Kelvin. It kind of depends on how much sort of light pollution is in the sky from any nearby towns and that sort of thing. Headlamp, a wonderful bit of kit out in the dark. Gives you your hands free to manipulate your camera or whatever you might be doing, while allowing you to see in the dark. But as an extra tip, get one with a red light. It takes around 30 minutes for the human eye to adjust in the dark to its best night vision capabilities. But that can be all destroyed in just a few moments with a bright torch or a bright headlamp for that matter. So using the red setting on a headlamp will allow you to keep that night vision much better. We've got our camera mounted on our sturdy tripod, but let's not introduce any shake by pushing our shutter buttons down with our finger. Either get yourself a remote trigger to trigger our camera that way, or we can just use the 2-second inbuilt timer on the camera. You know that great sound. An LED light is another useful piece of kit for our night photography adventures. Just a small one. You don't need a lot of light to illuminate your foregrounds, but you'll be surprised at how just throwing a little bit of light into that foreground will make a huge difference. It's far more interesting than just a silhouette of a tree against the sky or a dark shape of a house. Now we can light up that house, tree, or whatever it might be, and get a whole lot of texture and detail. My most important tip when choosing an LED panel is get one with a variable light output. As you can see, this one has about 9 different steps, and you can change it. That way, depending on how far you put your light away from your subject, you can vary its output to perfectly match your exposures. I consider these last 2 tips probably the most important ones of all. Getting yourself a selection of apps that you can rely on will really make your planning of your Milky Way and other astro adventures a lot easier. Apps like Sun Surveyor, Photo Pills, and Google Earth can really help you work out where the Milky Way will be in the sky, what's the landscape's going to be like before you even get there. Weather apps are also really useful. Find ones that are accurate for your area. In Australia, Weather Zone is a wonderful app. I also recommend Cloudy Outside. This app breaks down each hour of the day and what the cloud forecast is going to be for the next week ahead. So you can get an idea of will you have clear skies, what time will the skies clear up, and so forth. I have a link below in the comments and just up here to my recent video on how I planned a Milky Way shot using just those apps I described earlier. And that brings us to our final tip for today. I can't stress this one enough. Get to know your camera in the dark. Understanding where all of these buttons are, how to get to your dials and modes and everything else in the dark without having to turn on a head torch or a light or anything else is invaluable. Getting to learn, how to change your ISO, how to change your shutter speeds, how to review a photo, how to magnify it quickly, all of these settings, plus a few extras that you might need. If you can learn all these settings in the dark without having to rely on a head torch, you'll save your night vision, you'll speed up your photography, and look, this is the most important one, with other people around, you won't look like an idiot fumbling around with your camera. You've got to look pretty cool. Hopefully those 9 tips were useful for you. I encourage you to get out there while the Milky Way season is at its best and get some wonderful astro shots.